NBA free agency opens on July 1st, man.
Excited.
Which means there's going to be lots of reports, some of which could have gone through. There's a lot of players linked to a lot of teams. Actually, some of them which we haven't really talked too much about, but those who have not seen, if you're watching this on Pluto, Chris Paul traded to the Rockets. That one went through, so that's a big one. We discussed a lot more of it over on the YouTube channel, and I'm sure in due time we'll discuss a lot more of it on the Pluto channel as well. But free agency last year, if you remember, all hell broke loose between the 1st and the 4th, leading up to Kevin Durant signing on the 4th, and then, of course, some of the other minor deals that went through, and then trades occurred. Just follow the Twitter, man. You'll see, and trust the sources. Wojnarowski's moving over to ESPN on July 1st at 12:01 a.m.
The biggest trade.
And the biggest trade. Well, the biggest trade, at least from network to network. So, additionally, let's get into some of these players, because I have some notes that were written down as to who likely is going to be moving, who could be moving, what the links are, so on and so forth. So Iguodala has drawn interest from 7 teams so far, including the Timberwolves, although the Timberwolves might be more difficult for them to sign Iguodala, and one of the people that they were looking at was Kyle Lowry. Kevin Durant will wait to re-sign his deal with the Warriors, so that's going to be the ones we see later on in the first week of July. He's going to wait to see what happens exactly with Iguodala and Sean Livingston and all that stuff to decide, I think, how to help the Warriors in that instance. The Celtics are looking to package Gordon Hayward and Paul George. Celtics have been looking to package together every goddamn player on this earth. We'll believe it when we see it. And the Mavs, Dirk's old, man, but I guess Dirk's going to take a major, major pay cut.
Yeah.
Which he would do for the Mavericks in general, which is good.
Our EP is gladly saying the cap has went down, so there's going to be less money for players. Now, Jason, this is what I'm interested in when it comes to the free agency, is what teams are now going to do in order to maintain a challenge. Yeah, of course, it's going to be interesting to see how some of these players are weighing up their options, but I think Chris Paul, what we're expected to see moving to the Rockets by this point, should immediately just spark a red flag for the Spurs. Because right now, at this very moment, albeit seeing Chris Paul moving to the Rockets and the Golden State Warriors, getting Kevin Durant back, as I'm sure he will, they're now falling down to the 3rd best team in the Western Conference, in my opinion, with what weighs up. So are they going to make a massive move for Kyle Lowry? Because they need another piece to that puzzle. They need another player coming in. Tony Parker's getting older. Kyle Lowry to run the point with Kawhi Leonard in there. LaMarcus Aldridge immediately become a better team. Kyle Lowry moves away from Toronto, is able to maybe maintain that certain level of consistency that we were lacking from him at certain points. But I think that the Spurs, whether it's, I don't know if they've shown interest in Paul George. Everyone's shown interest in Paul George at this point. The same thing has to be looked at from the Eastern Conference. Everyone now needs to play catch up to the Cavaliers. The Celtics looked good last year, but they looked limp next to the Cleveland Cavaliers despite having the best regular season. They were the #1 seed. So they need to do something to make a move for Paul George. Gordon Hayward as well, another good piece to add to that puzzle. I want to see how all the teams that are almost fringe teams looking to strengthen, but I want to see what moves they're making in order to compete with the #1 teams in both the East and the West. And I think that the Spurs are going to have to make a big move. I don't think they can rely again on Kawhi Leonard's brilliance from the entire year and LaMarcus Aldridge showing up towards the end and maybe throwing in some 40-point games in the playoffs. They need another player to come in and run the point that's going to be more fast-paced. I know they pass a lot in that system, but I think that Pop's going to be looking to someone maybe like Kyle Lowry.
I think he should. It's not really the Spurs' way to sign major free agents until about a year and a half ago, where they signed guys like Pau Gasol and LaMarcus Aldridge. And maybe that's the way, that the direction they're going to need to go. But they do also have, and people keep forgetting with the Spurs, Jonathan Simmons is a very bright young player.
He had a great start last season.
Is easily the most athletic Spur. I use the word athlete too many times, but the guy was quick-footed defensively, which was nice to see, and he was able to bring a little bit of an extra pop to a Spurs offense that some find boring, others find to be fascinating, depending on which way you look at it. We'll never count out Greg Popovich. I'll say it a million times. I don't think he's going the senile Phil Jackson route of all of a sudden all those rings being like, well, what happened to Pop?
Yeah.
The guy still pulls aces out of his sleeve all the time if you're paying attention. And like one of those, if you remember, was, and what did it mean in the end? Not much, because they weren't able to get past the Warriors. Also, Kawhi Leonard being injured was a big thing. But like the opening game in the Warriors building with the new team, they stomped on him. And he finds ways to outcoach players. Patty Mills is another interesting young player who I wouldn't be too surprised if he did make a move. Because I think Patty Mills still, actually he's not that young, but Patty Mills being another player who could fit with multiple teams. The point guard market has a steep drop off after like Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
It becomes like, we were looking before, Zach, our intern, like Bobby Brown of the Rockets. Nobody wants Bobby Brown. EP Dan did mention that the expected cap is down $3 million, but the important note is it's up $5 million from last year. So GMs were preparing, of course, based on the $102 million that was expected for the NBA this season. And when you prepare for that, it starts to affect contracts in the long term. And of course, little things like when you have bird rights for a team, if you have a player for X amount, veterans, exceptions, all these things, you can get more money if you stay with your team. But here's the trend we're seeing, man. People don't want to stay with their teams if they can't win. So they are happy to leave $50 million on the table if it means they think they can compete better with other teams. What's up? Except Melo, which we might have to buy out. Also, the other important note with the cap in terms of signing some of these guys is the other trend. Owners don't care if they go over the cap. They're happy to pay the luxury tax limit, which is $113 million, which is like pretty much the threshold they can go up to with paying a certain degree of taxes. And if you're Joe Lacob, man, he's not having a problem paying for that. He just won a ring. And if you're, I guess what might be Chauncey Billups running the Cavs, you might not have a problem with it because you want to win a ring. And Daryl Morey, I think, is going to push it as far as he can go and maybe goes over to the Rockets GM. He's possibly going to make that move. Pat Riley can pay for the luxury tax limit with hair grease. I mean, the guy, perfectly slick back hair. It's another destination for guys like Kyle Lowry. Is that what we were talking about before? Or Paul George, or all of them. Andre Iguodala, sign them all. But the biggest name left on the market is Paul George, I think, because Steph Curry and KD would be a bombshell. Blake's a big name on the market too. Go to the Thunder, Blake. Go to the Thunder so Dan can keep his season tickets here, Dan or EP. And also go to the Thunder so, like, you know, the Thunder fans could be super.
It'd be an explosive duo.
Also, look out for Russell Westbrook to sign a massive contract extension with the Thunder.
Yeah.